Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to another episode of our Suzerain Let's Play. As we pick things back up, we have a few newspaper articles. This one's the same one. Why is it prompting us? We attended the funeral of Bernard Circus last time, and we had a decent speech. We just tried to calm things down and didn't really use the opportunity to promote any messaging or take any sides. That's pretty much it for that episode. Now we still have to take care of unrest, but it seems like the only point of contention is back in our hometown of Lockhaven. There's a briefing on the diplomatic situation. This could be just diplomatic situation with every single other country, not necessarily Rumburg, which seems to be a very military situation there. And we have David Vesey. We haven't met him yet. He's our Minister of Foreign Affairs. Once a lecturer to me, was a professor to us. What university was he at? That is weird. Because I don't think... Right, Dyer University, we didn't attend that. Anyhow. Sit down, Mr. President. Of course, it's a pleasure to see you, Mr. Vesey. Likewise, we have so much ahead of us to accomplish. He slowly sat down, taking care not to aggravate the arthritis in his knees. He's always had an air of gravitas about him, and old age had only served to deepen that. After he settled himself, he regarded me with delight. His blue eyes sparkled. Look at you, Anton, the 4th president of Sordland. What a privilege for me. I still remember the first day you took my class at Lockhaven School of Economic. It is not on your dossier, but I'm gonna assume that's a post he had. Somehow, the inexplicable ebb and flow of life has led us here to the positions where we can change the course of history. This is our opportunity to shape the future, and we'll do precisely that. I'm looking forward to our new foreign policy. He started coughing again, this time for longer. Would you like some tea or water? Oh yes, please. Tea and water sounds nice. Thank you very much, he smiled. Livia brought 2 cups of tea along with a glass of water and placed them on the table. It seems you still remember how much I like tea. Nowadays, it really does wonders to my throat. How's your health, David? Oh, I haven't had any big complications except the usual. After that heart attack earlier this year. The health complications aren't a hindrance to my work, of course, but thanks for asking. How's the Rayne family? Frank never liked the spotlight, so that hasn't changed. As time passes, I realize it more. Family is the most important thing in life. We must take care of them. The door opened. Isuf and Lucian joins us for a briefing. It seems like we do have our military man in the office, Minister of Defense. Peter, however, was missing. I wondered if he was late from all the drinking he did at the party in Lockhaven. We'll talk more later, President Rayne. Welcome, everyone. Let's begin. Very well. I will start by providing a brief overview of our current status with our neighbors. What would you like to start with? Let's go with Anolia in the north. Our brotherly nation to our northeast, Angolia, they are still diplomatically non-aligned and probably has one of the most diplomatic system, I guess it's cut off, systems between our neighbors. Economic stagnation is a worry for them. Their primary issue is their heavy reliance on foreign investment from us. Angolia is our most friendly neighbor. We have been allies for the longest time. After Rumburg annexed Dome, this fact needs to be a part of the equation. Unsurprisingly, the Angolan Prime Minister Martin van Hoontener is expecting better cooperation through a new fair trade deal with us. It was one of his election mandates. Perhaps we can get something from him. Both sides could gain from it, but Enolia has more to win than us. They need to protect their weaker industries, which we are profiting from selling our goods to. Additionally, the latest number indicate that currently 1 million Anglo-Swordist citizens live in England, region of Sordland, which creates a link between foreign policy and our internal affairs. These people have suffered socioeconomically, which led them to crime and other problems. In addition, a relaxed immigration policy was one of Angnolia's main requests, which is unacceptable. Most of the migrants in our country haven't even assimilated into Swordish culture, adding more won't help. This is an interesting point. We need the help of the nationalists. Let's be supportive? No, I think we're gonna be hardline on immigration for now. You should be. We have already witnessed society shifting waves of immigration. We should remember that we promised to tighten our immigration law in the election campaign. Alright, on to the next neighbor. Want to know more about Vagsland? And our cousin of old across the Markian Sea wished to have a good relation with us. As we all know, Vagsland is a socialist republic aligned with the United Contana. They are the important regional player. It's also the most significant sea power in Eastern Marcopa. We have hostile relationship with them after several wars in the 19th century, which we wouldn't want to experience again. Recently, the relationship has warmed up thanks to Imric Hengel. Chancellor, okay. As a result, diplomatic talks can be conducted in the future. Yes, we would like to break ice. I agree. They could be potential allies in my opinion. The situation in the region necessitate that we find allies. They haven't been in good relation with us for the past 200 years. Recently, they have also joined the Communist Contanian Security Pact, subjugating themselves to United Contana. On top of that, territorial issue flare up between Enolia and Vagsland because of the Hegian Land Island. I think there's a little island in between. The Swordish Navy is very concerned with this volatile situation. Lucian looks slightly worried. Unfortunately, billions of Swordish Ren worth of cargo is transported close to Vagslandian maritime borders on the Markian Sea and the Grey Strait. This causes significant risk to our import and exports in case of deterioration in relations. The strait is of high strategic value to us. The Navy is keeping an eye on the situation from a distant right. We're actively monitoring the sea routes and cargo ships for now. There is no immediate threat, but we don't know what can happen in the future. Okay, what is the latest situation on Wallen? It's tumultuous in the south as always. Victor Schmolek, who is currently the president, is expanding his power among protests from Vexi people. However, he is quite positive about a normalization relationship between our countries. Reports indicate that they have been warming up to Contanian international aid. As you know, Villain's stability was always a concern for the region, but if we want to help them, we must not treat refugees like we did in the 30s. I still can't stomach the inhumanity of those people suffered. A trade agreement with them would improve stability and increase mutual trade. There will be many bargaining chips discussed, but Willen could be a new partner in the region. We would also invest in stability there. Our main goal should be to avoid a refugee crisis like the late 1920s. The Civil War had major security and economic repercussions on Swordish soil. One of the demands of President Schmalak was to tighten our immigration laws, so the political refugees don't escape to Sordland. There has been a recent purge that pushed many Buddhists to flee to Bergia. It is definitely troubling. Gumrim outpost has regained its importance due to this. I'm sure you would remember that winter at the border post, Mr. President. Yes, we served and we turned back some refugees. He was right. I did remember that winter. I remember the despair in the refugees' eye when we forcefully escorted them back to Wayland's border. It is in our national interest to prevent the formation of a failed state on our western border. Wayland has been increasingly aligning itself towards the Communist Alliance, another point to analyze. Let's move on. Two important neighboring countries remain, Lesbia and Rumburg. Which would you like to hear first? Let's look at Lesbia. Our southern neighbor is aligning itself more and more with Arcadia. Lesbia is currently led by Prime Minister Patricio Alvarez. 100 richest man in the world, business magnate. They are the jewel of the continent and the second largest economy in Marcopa. Though wealthy, Lesbia suffer from excessive economic inequality. Our past relationships have been great, but during the last decade, their investment in Sordland dwindled due to our instability. Well, allying with them would be nice. It could be, but it would also mean that we would draw closer to Arcadia bloc near the Arcadian Treaty Organization. I am certain that recession has a lot to do with their retraction of investment. Once they see that money isn't in the picture, they vanish rather quickly because they're capitalists. They have shown a selfish attitude during the Wayland Civil War by closing their borders and funneling refugees to cross into Sordland. Lucian cleared his throat. What is really our values here? We need their money, though. Not sure I'm envious of their capitalism structure, but let's just say it would be hard to see eye to eye. I completely agree. Lesbia has for a long time benefited from us through our old tariffs. They are after exploitation. There are hundreds of very privileged oligarchies who invest inside and outside of Lesbia. Some made significant business investment in the cities of Benfi and Vaughan. What's the situation in Rumburg? Now to the most troublesome nation, Rumburg, a constitutional monarchy led by Queen Beatrice Livingston. A queen, huh? She was 16 and 21. We're currently 53. 32 years. She's 48. Interesting. I highly advise caution and calculated action against Rumburg. Our military must be prepared. The threat is real. They are strong and have the motivation, as well as the means, to damage us. We shouldn't give them any reason to pursue aggression. I'll take your advice in consideration. These types of nations will always try to make up a casus belli, a reason to declare war. Will Thornborough openly deny such claim? Their past and current actions make it clear that they want to destabilize us. The weapon catches found in our intelligence agency clearly show what their goals are. Our military must be steadfast and our diplomacy valiant. Isov looked stern and full of resolve. This is our top priority. You must be assured of that. We're always in dialogue with our Rumburg ambassador to make sure a channel is open to solve disputes. Didn't they pull their embassy? We could use their aggressive attitude against them by convincing the international community. Lucian grabbed the Lockhaven Time paper and put his finger on the article about the latest diplomatic incident. Their abrupt announcement about closure of the Rumburg consulate in Lockhaven, I guess they still have one in our capital, is yet another step in their escalation. This covers the overflow of the current situation. We'll move on to our trade choices and response to Rumburg's diplomatic escalation. The sun begun to set over the hills surrounding Lockhaven. The team was ready to give advice on the new trade initiative in response to the latest diplomatic incident with Rumburg. Peter arrived late, a little rougher than usual. It must have been the drinking from last night. Hey there, folks. Excuse my delay. I'm sure I didn't miss anything we didn't already know. You're still supposed to be part of this meeting, also on time. Punctuality is important. We're talking about serious subjects here. They have a point, Peter. We should have discipline in the cabinet. Excuse me, it won't happen again. Lucian and Isov look at Peter before David moved away from the subject. The Vice President will be part of the trade delegation, so it's great to have input on the subject, but also on Rumberg incident. There are two issues at hand. Which topic should we tackle first? Let's talk about the diplomatic incident. Rumberg Consul Sir Bran Harrington announced the closure of the 120-year-old consulate. Now their diplomatic staff is leaving the city to go back to Thornborough. He blamed the lack of security in Sordland due to the assassination and the subsequent protest, but it's obvious that they are making excuses. Bastards. First they close their consulate, then they blame our security. Well, it is a lot of unrest, but the reaction's unnecessary. Agree. Our other diplomatic missions have worked with our security units to increase the protection of the staff and building. The neglect of President Alfonso and the chaos of the election delayed our diplomatic efforts. Now there are only 2 Rumberg diplomatic missions left in Sordland. One is the consulate in Dyer, the other is the embassy in Holsod. This is far more serious. They are playing with fire. Look at what the Wayland destabilization has done to the region. Sordland breaking apart would tear Mercopa apart. In my entire career, I've never seen our Rumberg relations suffer this much. The previous low point was the annexation of Dome. Isov was furious. He barely kept himself from slamming the desk. There are worrying developments, like the smuggled arms and the buildup near the border. Our military must be buffed up to stand against a regional power like Rumberg. We either responded to this aggressive act with a diplomatic condemnation, or we retaliate by closing our consulate in Dome. I want to say that escalation would be risky this early in our presidency. We should focus on creating a negative image of Rumberg in the international scene. The people of Sordland must be protected, no matter the cost. I say we respond equally. Oh wow, the general wants to be strong here, which, I mean, definitely is a proper thing to respond in full, but is that the goal? Is shutting down a consulate on both sides what we really want? Let's get the international crowd into this and try to fix it. Perhaps have them come back. As you wish, Mr. President, I shall begin working by immediately informing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Swaying the international stage is the key in long-term strategy. I wish we had reacted more strongly. If we don't confront them, they'll keep escalating the situation. I, on the other hand, am glad that we're taking the more cautious road. Let's move on to trade. Our primary goal will be to successfully sign a trade agreement with one of our smaller neighbors. We have 2 options with our trade initiative, starting with negotiating with our old partner, Anolia, and forming a new cooperation with Wayland. Let's start with Anolia. First off, the reason behind this option is more diplomatic than economic, though of course we can't forgo the added economic value. Anolia is an old ally and a valuable trade partner. The point we are at with the early negotiations around the steel trade, they're demanding that we buy their steel for a higher price. That is because they think the deal is far too unbalanced as it is. Their second main demand is a privileged access to our agricultural market. If we are to fulfill their demands, in return they're offering a full alliance with Sordland against Rumberg. Looking at the current advantages of Rumberg near our border, having a coalition against Rumberg would prove extremely useful. Obviously, there would be consequences for entering a full alliance. Mainly the issues around the Helgi Islands. Vauxland has clear intention on taking over the island one way or another. Entering a military alliance with Anolia will make them furious. I want to state my support for the decision to stick to our old ally, Anolia. Oh, I'm sorry, General. You're going to be very mad after this meeting. Even though they disagree with their demand to relax immigration, we have cooperation with them on many issues in the past. There are obviously subjects that we would still need to tackle, like our economies, their trade goods, and what to do with immigration. My opinion is that this is a good deal and we should go for it. The new Angolian Prime Minister is trying to improve existing relations. The downside is we'll need to make concessions, a reality of any trade deal. Right, there's a lot of things I don't like about this. The potential to suffer from a loss of trade routes, allying with someone against Rumberg when clearly they need our help for Rumberg too, right? We don't need a formal alliance. We're helping them as much as they're helping us in that situation. And we're also damaging our relationship and also swaying ourselves closer to the United Cantana, which I think is what they're aligning themselves with. So yeah, not so happy about this. This. That is certainly a valid reason. If you decide that Enolia is a good option, another point is that they have a very diplomatic system. After the recent election, the PM has a mandate to arrange a fair deal with us. Martin van Houten is an avid supporter of relaxed immigration. Since we said we'll tighten immigration, he might be reluctant. Regardless, if we're going to increase our regional influence to previous levels, we might need to make amends with our neighbors. Ultimately, the decision will be up to you as always. Let's look at Wayland. Dealing with a fractured country like Wayland has its positives and negatives. Although it will be a lucrative in the short term, there are risks associated with dealing with such a country. They are proposing a co-investment project and a no-tariff agreement. They are also offering oil in return for attracting foreign interests, capital interests from Sordland. However, it is possible there will be international ramifications of getting closer with a country like Wayland. All in all, this is very lucrative for us. However, we need to think about the consequences. I certainly don't support a decision to become friendlier with Wayland. We carried their burdens for decades. Their migrants flooded our country, now they expect a deal from us. Maintaining influence with Wayland could prove useful. Yes, it is risky, but think about our influence on an underdeveloped region like that. We could also sell more product, enter their markets easily. I'm of the opinion it's simply too risky. Yes, we would gain resources and immediate capital, but I'm afraid of the consequences. I am in favor of this one if these are the only two options, right? We keep our current deal with Enolia, and we get a new one with Wayland. The migrant crisis is one of the reasons behind the destabilization of Sordland. I would like to point out it was due to Wayland. If we wish to go forward with the deal, when the time comes, there is a topic of immigration to consider. Vector Schmolak is a known isolationist. Our promise to tighten our immigration policy will increase the likelihood of the deal. He believes our border needs better security. I personally don't like the idea of getting too close to Wayland. Me too. Agreed. I still think we should give it a try. So Peter is the only one on my side. Since we didn't promise to align with neither East or West, it's very likely their concerns will be more around the deal itself. We also need to consider the effect of our economic doctrine plan. The fact that we are headed towards a market economy will have an influence. Good negotiator optimized interests, which makes the difference become trivial, allowing both sides to reach a deal. Very true, Mr. Vectorn. We have a lot of time to prepare before the scheduled visit to Wayland and Enolia. I believe this gives a brief overview of our current options. Our trade delegation will begin work towards the end of the year. We expect a full negotiation and signing to happen next year. I'm very much looking forward to visiting Stauport and Warad with party animals like David and Simon. Peter laughed. Isov narrowed his eyes and stared at him. Well, that concludes our meeting, Mr. Rayne. See you later, gentlemen. I'll take my leave, sir. Alright, so we have sort of a diplomatic overview. We have some reports here. Detained Yansod member in Arvery claimed that he has connection to the government. We've been investigating the truth of his claim, but found no lead. Alright, guess it's back to the capital. Reform Committee. Oh, for the changes on our constitution in the assembly. Alright, took up a seat on the central chair in a vacant meeting room as I waited for them to show up. The reforms were slowly becoming the most significant expectation of my government. They would change Seoul's constitution in 1929. Most people nowadays blame the constitution for the outstanding problem of the country. On the other hand, the reformists in the assembly have been getting louder about their demands. What I knew for sure was that I needed to do something about the encroaching chaos before it swallowed me. Meanwhile, Lucian, Peter, and Nia has been leading the committee to prepare an initial draft for the Constitution amendments. I was intrigued to hear their results. There was a knock on the door. It's Lucian. Good afternoon, sir. Lucian arrived exactly on the hour mark again. His punctuality could almost be described as obsessive. Good afternoon, Lucian. He took a seat on the table and took out a bunch of documents, spreading them on the long table. We should begin the meeting as soon as Mrs. Morgana and Mr. Vice President arrives. We finally have some results from the Reform Committee. How does it look? Well, the situation is quite complicated, but I'm sure we will make it work, just like we accomplished many things before. We'll go over the details regarding the new constitution in the meeting. A few minutes later, Peter and Nia also arrived. After a short chat, everyone sat down, took out their notes. I knew it was going to be a long meeting. There's a lot to talk about the future of this process. Let's begin tackling the points of contention. Mr. President, I heard from Mr. Lucian, that you are not intending to support diplomatic reforms. Our committee meetings have been really fruitful, and we already started the constitutional draft together with feedback from all the political parties. We are making clear progress here. You wouldn't really block our hard work, would you? I already explained my intentions. She leaned slightly towards me. This is our once-in-a-lifetime chance to change the constitution of Tarquin Sol, Mr. President. We work hard to create a draft together with the leaders of our party and the opposition. Nothing else is more important for Sordland. With all due respect, I'll be the judge of that. Peter cuts in before Nia could speak. If I may continue, Mr. President, we have discussed the possibility of intentions with Mr. Galade. There are some people in the USP who would support a new constitution with more executive powers. Getting the support of NFP nationalists is our best bet on this path. That said, we should try to reach a common ground with the conservative wing of our party to be able to propose such changes in the assembly. Can we possibly reach a 2/3 majority in the assembly? We'll never be able to get PFJP to work with us, but if we can get Kibner to work with you on this, our only remaining problem would be uniting our own party. We need the majority of our 130 seats in Assembly to vote in favor, but without NFP's support of 40 votes, we can never surpass the needed 166. Kibner's full support as well as our party is needed. But it would be tough to unite the USP with all the divisive wings that formed. You must make them follow you loyally. We did it before the election, we can unite it again. Albin Coven and his reformist wing will be completely against you. He's already responded negatively in the committee meeting, but I think he will still be open to discussions. I think we have ran into him a couple times already, and hopefully we can have something figured out. However, the conservatives may be persuaded easier. The influence of Sol is still living strong in the party. They might follow you if they respect you as a strong leader. How many votes do they have? The Conservative has around 40 seats. If we can get the online to support us along with our loyalists, we'll have enough votes. So we need as many as the Conservative to support us, and there is one key person who can help us get their support. You must be talking about Gloria, our speaker. She's well respected by the Solists. She is the biggest problem in our party. But judging by what Mr. President is trying to do, I believe he can find common ground under Solism. The problem will not be her, but me, Mr. President. I cannot allow a more authoritative constitution to be made. There is no way I can support this. But we need more executive power to bring bigger change. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but that's the Solist talking point. I won't be convinced by that argument. I'm sure we can work something out with you, Mrs. Morgana. I'm starting to doubt that, Mr. President. We'll talk about this later. Can we pass it through the Supreme Court? They're the biggest obstacle. Even if we pass the Assembly, the Chief Justice will do his best to block our amendments. We need at least 6 of the 11 judges to vote for the proposal, but Mr. Hawker has enormous influence over the judges. Wait, Mr. Hawker, right. Shouldn't he be hardline, old school, supporting us? We should reach out to the judges in secret. Some of them might be willing to break rank to support us. We'll do what's necessary to get them in line. Nia was taken aback by the statement. Well, she's already kind of taken aback by me overall. She's morally straight, and we're in the gray area now. We'll definitely need to work with some of the old guards aligning the judges. Who do you think will be willing to support the change? I think we can reach out to Judge Edmonds and extension Mr. Dalton, Mr. Martin. They aren't working together with the old guards as far as we know. We will also need to get more votes from the conservative judges. I believe Heron Grassi might be the weakest link in the old guard. He can help us get the 6 votes needed. According to the Constitution, I'm a member of the Supreme Court, which means you already have 1 vote against this. I already know 2 of the judges who are with me as well. Come now, Mrs. Morgna. You said you're open to discuss Mr. President's version of the new Constitution. Of course, Mr. Victor. But I already have a strong opinion about what it contains. Lucian cuts in. Anything else, sir? Did you already work on a plan? Yes, Mr. President. Pulls out a huge dossier from his briefcase. What? You're working on a different draft while we're working in the committee? That is correct. Mr. President had stronger ideas. Surely I couldn't work on with the reform committee, no offense. Now if we're going in this direction, I'll need everyone to focus. Let's proceed. Okay then, let's see what we talk about here. She spoke with a gentle tone, but her phrase couldn't hide her disappointment and anger. We have established 2 main points parallel to the demands of the reformists. We'll go through each of them to get your input. We'll start with section 1. Reformists want your absolute veto power to be removed, or at least limited. We could potentially give them what they want by limiting it. It wouldn't cause problems as we already have the majority in the assembly. Or better yet, we could change the article according to their demands, but establish new loopholes for you to hold your veto power. I don't mind limiting the vetoes. I like the idea. Maybe we could convince some of the reformists with that. But it all depends on the whole change. It would be better not to change anything. I can't believe you're all in this. With all due respect, I'll take my leave from this meeting. I don't think I have anything to add anymore. I cannot associate with plans of tyranny. She took her notes and stood up. I wish you a good day, Mr. President. We'll see what happens in the assembly and the court. Good day to you too, Mrs. Morgna. She gives a fake smile and leaves the room. That's troublesome. While I respect her, I doubt she's capable of creating a major obstacle for us, but we'll have to keep a close eye on her. I'll make sure. I don't know if I can make sure, but keep an eye on her. I'll move on to the second point then. The new constitution should remove the Supreme Court out of the constitutional amendment process. Not only popular, it would also strengthen our position against the judiciary. This is a point that was unanimously agreed on by all parties. Tarkin Sol established this rule to protect the 29th Constitution. We can break the power of the old guards with this. According to such change, constitutional amendment will still require 2/3 vote system to be able to propose a change. However, the judiciary will not have the final say in the amendment. So we're going to chop off a leg of the judiciary. Right, that's the question. Why would the court support this? Most of them won't, but we already talked about a possible agreement with Isabel, which may change things. We could potentially get Heron and the Solace Judge as well. Apart from these 2 critical points, we could address a lot of the issues already discussed for our own benefit. The NFP wants to reform the appointment procedure of the ministers. Mr. Kipner clarified the Assembly should have a say in the formation of the Council of Ministers. They're potential allies, so this is an important demand to consider. That is something that a majority in our party also supports. We could address the term limit and election threshold as well. Well, that one is a controversial one. I doubt the USP will like that. Immunity of the justices, the impeachment of the president, the power of the presidential decree, all these are in the realm of possibility. If we can establish a proper balance and get the support of NFP, you can gain a lot from these changes. I would say keeping everything in the middle ground is the safest bet, not need to agitate anyone too much. We need their votes. I'll keep working with them and keep you updated, Mr. President. Well, regardless of what you decide, we'll need to work together with all the cabinet to push this agenda. But now we have a better picture of your intentions, sir. I'll start reaching out to my contacts to make a draft that works for you. I'll present your input to the USB leader and the National Front. In a few months, you would have the draft on your table or desk to make the final changes yourself. I think this was yet another fruitful meeting, so I trust your judgment. I like how Lucian is very loyal and just very gray, like very neutral on his own point of view. Together we'll make Sordland great again? No. Not after what recently happened in the US. Thanks for the meeting, gentlemen. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you, Anton. Alright, have a good day. They left their room. Alright, we got a few more status reports. Promising industrial potential. The mayor of Conrad, Chris Nar, reports decision starting the cause industrial investor of... Oh! It's ready, starting to pay dividends. International investment flooding into our country. Now the trade with them is going to be this route. We didn't go for that highway system, which is why I kind of don't want to do the trade with them. The Taurus Holding has reported preparatory work for the L1 railroad has already started, including clearing land, transportation equipment. Construction of the railroad starts the next month from Holsud. Good. Progress. A meeting with the Chief Justice. The administration have been working day and night on the overwhelming amount of issues that face the country. The department sent several documents which required my signature so they could start working on new decisions were taken. After I signed dozens of them, I closed my eye to relax for a moment. Another long day. Even though I really wished to leave the palace for the day, Lucian had earlier told me the Chief Justice wanted to speak with me. We planned a meeting in my office in 30 minutes. I waited for him, wondering what subjects he would raise. Just relax, no need for alcohol. Thousands of shimmering lights in Holsud skyline were mesmerizing. Suddenly I heard a knock on the door. It was Lucian. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Lucian. I'm sorry that I couldn't explain the situation to you in detail earlier. The Chief Justice insists on seeing you this evening. I do not know what he has to say, but it will probably be about the new constitution. He will be coming shortly with Judge... Heron. Okay. We shouldn't take them lightly. We may be able to cooperate with them. I advise against that, sir. I don't trust the Chief Justice. We should. There are 3 knocks at the door. Checked his watch, looked rather worried. They're early. Livia, good evening, President. It's great to see you. Evening. Welcome, Justice Garassi and Chief Justice Hawker. Good to see you indeed. Orso gestured a sofa in the office. May I? Please. We all took our seat on 2 opposite sofas and made ourselves comfortable. How were your first couple months, Mr. President? I hope you're faring well. Thank you. It's very busy, but I'm doing good. It'll only get busier, yet I think you're doing a good job so far, considering all that's happening around us, with the shooting near the palace and soldiers on our borders. He let out a deep sigh. It's a troubling time. We appreciate your concern. So, you probably know why we are here. Please enlighten us, Mr. Hawker. We know you're working on a new constitution. The Supreme Court does not approve of this. With all due respect, the constitution needs to be updated, sir. I'm sure you're well aware of the public demand in our circumstances. And the public demanded to give more power to the president? Spare me the lecture. I know you have different ideas. Even if your proposal passed the assembly, I will make sure it not pass the Supreme Court. That much is clear. You haven't even seen the proposal yet, Mr. Hawker. Isn't it too soon to be against it? Do you think I live under a rock, Mr. President? I know what goes on. Yet you, Mr. President, seem to be only partially informed about the current situation. Please let us explain the reason of our stance. Let's hear it. We are protecting the Constitution because it works, Mr. President. It is efficient and it gives you the authority to lead the nation with swift decisions. Sordland has more important problems and threats that we should face right now instead of nitpicking about some paragraphs of the Constitution. We have a potential war within our borders. Orso signaled Heron with his hand to let him speak instead. Mr. President, I know that you're a busy man, so I'll make this quick. We all know the Sorder Security Force found stashes of Rumburgian weaponry in the hideouts of British separatists, KA-74s, are roaming inside Sordland at the moment. As much as Rumberg posed a direct threat, now it's clear that they are interfering in our country and weaponizing our minorities against us. It's not unprecedented to think that the Boods will start their terror again with their new toys. Not to mention the fight that broke out between the left and the right wings after the shooting of Bernard Circus. Communists are rising with the support of United Cantana. The chaos is imminent for Sordland. And sadly, we don't see the administration taking the necessary precautions yet. We clearly need more funding for our security forces for the day to come. This is not a matter you should be worried about. Aren't we all part of the state, Mr. President? We are all responsible for Sordland if Sordland fails to overcome these threats. But regardless of that, are you also aware that the armed Buddhist separatists have direct connections with the Workers' Party of Budia? They claim otherwise. They may claim they have no ties with the separatists, but most of their members used to be part of them before they formed the Workers' Party of Budia. How about the name, Mr. President? It's not the Workers' Party of Sordland, is it? As far as I'm aware, there's no nation called Budia around here. What is this all about? The only reason they're not in the assembly is because of the election threshold. They've gotten quite big, they're clearly getting outside help, and their connections to the paramilitary Buddhist forces cannot be denied. And all of a sudden, the reformers are trying to decrease the electoral threshold so that the Buddhist separatists can be legitimized in the assembly to achieve their aim of independence. I will not allow it to happen. Therefore, we need to work together. But I wish the only issues were the Buddhist terrorists and Nuremberg. The reformers suggest changes that would also bring the communists who are backed by United Cantana into the assembly. Do you see the pattern yet? And what is your suggestion? We should take the necessary measure against the communists and the Buddhist plot, as well as increasing our military budget against a possible conflict with Nuremberg. And of course, not fall into the traps of the reformists by listening to their demand. They're clearly planning to weakening the president and our whole administrator in order to exploit the situation. Which brings us to a very important information that we have. It's definitely something you need to hear, and it can change absolutely everything. With all due respect, Mr. President, I think this is getting slightly ridiculous. Please explain, Mr. Hawker. The person in question is Fern's rector himself, the leader of the reformists. We have enough information to infer that he has ties with Arcadia. Arcadia is aggressively growing their influence around the world, and now we have Mr. Rector coming up with these ridiculous demands for a new constitution. Amidst the chaotic period in Sordland, all the pieces seem to fit perfectly. That is why the Supreme Court will be doing what it takes to stop these reforms and preserve the constitution. How would you know that Mr. Rector has ties to Arcadia? Mr. Glade, we all know he's been in Arcadia many times because it has been documented. But what would you think if he also has been making hidden flights to the country? He's hiding his flights to Arcadia? He was. He has been spotted in a hotel in Arcadia last year, where they held the Conference of Economic Development in Volatile Regions. Right around the time he started to influence the masses into believing our constitution is the reason for everything's bad. His trip was not documented, nor was he official guest of the conference. We believe that he had a meeting with President Walker behind closed doors. I also have a couple more photos of him that were taken in Arcadia in different cities. One is from a couple months back. Again, none of it's documented. Mr. Oslo is scary here. A Chief Justice with a very far-reaching hand. He's also attended another event in Lesbia last week. The Arcadian Minister of Foreign Affairs was there too. How did you find out about this? Many Solas have already following his lead for quite some time. Mr. President, I cannot give away their identities, but I can give you the evidence. He handed me a small file. Basically everything that he has been explaining. These seems to be real. Of course they're real, Mr. Glade. These seem to suggest that Arcadia is behind the reformists, and their demand will only benefit Arcadia. They want us to have a weaker administration when we face all these threats. This is clearly a plot against Sordland. I bet Rumberg is part of their plan too. This cannot be a coincidence that they're weaponizing our minorities against us around the same time. Now we understand the reason of our current stance, and also our suspicion about your advisors who clearly have not given you this vital information. Lucian gave him a sharp look. We appreciate the information, Mr. Hawker, but I advise against jumping to conclusions right away. We still need to check the information. There is not much to think or check. This is clearly an emergency. In such case, the Constitution gives the President the right to use these emergency powers. If we work together, we can make sure the Supreme Court will not block your declaration of emergency. Huh. This is a twist and turn here. Let's talk about how we can work together. Of course, we cannot wait for the process of the Assembly to take care of these issues. You can exercise your president for a fast and effective solution, which means you might need to suspend part of the Constitution to give more authority to our security force to deal with these issues. We must officially investigate Mr. Richter as well. You can devise a strong security decree if you can base it on Article 57 and 58, which gives the President the right to suspend part of the Constitution to deal with the national security threats. You can directly bypass Assembly in such a situation. The only thing you need is the Supreme Court to allow the emergency to be declared, and you have our word on that. So I think this is going a bit too far. We shouldn't escalate things so fast. Mr. President, why don't we talk in private, only two of us? We can devise a plan together. I know how we can use the Constitution to our advantage. It'd be more effective if Mr. Galladay and Mr. Garcia was leave the room before we discuss. Sir, I advise against it. Huh. I don't like his agenda. I don't want the emergency. I want to trade his fear with a plan that he can accept, but he is clearly trying to guide our nose here. We won't be cooperating, Mr. Hawker. Even though you're aware of our national security threats, you're making a big mistake, Mr. President. We will not allow you to succeed. You're the ones making the mistake. We'll see, Mr. President. We'll see. Have a good evening. That was not good. They clearly tried to threaten you. We need to take care of them in a good way. Urza will be doing whatever it takes to damage you. We need to be careful. There's still many old guard sympathizers in our party. We can't let them divide our party, and he'll definitely try. After a short evaluation of the situation in our hand, Lucian left me in the presidential office. It's obvious that the old guards would be my main rivals in the near future. I mean, we could have had them as our allies and become a dictator of sorts. Let's see, I've got some news. Emergency in Arica. Mayor announced state of chaos. 20 police officers heavily wounded. 2 police stations burned down. Whew. We got the military helping out. NFP assisting local reinforcements. Let's see. Hawker in the Maroon Palace. Welfare issues of Narbel. Lack of health care. Lack of roads. Right, the party has lost funding. The Worker Party of Budia, the Labor's Union, as well as our major opposition. Sordland condemns closure. Right, this is our international play. Seems like we might be finally done with our Chapter 1. Let's see if that's indeed the case. Trials of democracy. We're playing a dangerous road of staying in the middle ground here. Like shifting towards a dictatorship or embracing reform will probably be the easier option. But we like to do things our own ways. And it seems we're still on Chapter 1. Okay, maybe just a few days has passed. A barbecue with our son. Family time.
guess we'll have some of that next time. Right, so I think we'll end our episode here, and we'll pick things back up next time. See you guys then. Bye.